The leaders that we have on our show, almost always, not only are passionate, they're smart, right? But the emotional intelligence they have is usually at a high level. And when I see how you connect today, and I was amazed at how you connected with this 49-year-old guy back 6 years ago, and then I see you connecting with my son, who was, let's say, 13, 14 at the time, Nick, right? Or my son, 20, a little older than you, Austin. You were able to connect with people of all ages at an odd time at 19 years old, right? Bill Montgomery, your right-hand advisor,
76,
at 72 at the time, now 70 or
78 now, yeah.
78 now. I mean, how you connected with him, I mean, that's not common. So again, explain the ability to connect with other people, and where what that means to you when you look for leaders today.
Someone said this to me, and it made a lot of sense, which is leadership is the ability to quickly judge people and organize them effectively. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And it's true, because if you think of what leadership is, it's being able to sit in a boardroom and being able to say, Susie's having a really bad day right now. I'm going to talk to her after. Mark needs his butt kicked right now. And, Tyler right now, he could be doing a lot more. He's just bustling. You got to get him another project. And Mark in the back of the room, I don't think he should be at our company anymore. You have to be able to do that in 30 seconds or less. That's what a leader is.
Wow.
It's very hard. It's very, very hard. And you know what? It can't be taught. Here's the time-old, I've read probably 30 books on this. And I finally have come to a conclusion. I have no conclusion. But no, I will tell you what I think of it. Is can leadership be taught? This is one of the great questions that stupefied the Greek philosophers, by the way, that the Roman thinkers spent hundreds of years writing about. Can leadership be taught? And so my answer, for whatever it's worth, is the qualities that make a good leader can be taught, but leaders cannot be created. They just can't. They just cannot be created. Now, you could become a better leader if you're in a position. If you just say, I'm just not a natural-born leader, but I'm in charge of this small group in church, and you could teach that person to be better at that, and they could become a better leader. But leaders of men, the Julius Caesars of the world, the Cleopatras, the King Solomons and the King Davids, the Alexander the Greats, the Genghis Khans, and I know I'm using a lot of military, but these are people that were really the great leaders for thousands of years, or the Napoleon Bonapartes, or the Thomas Aquinas, or the Marcus Aureliuses, or the Augustus Caesar, the great leaders of our time, or the Thomas Jefferson, or the George Washington, or the Abraham Lincoln, or the Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Ronald Reagan. You just can't teach that.
Yeah. Okay, but here's what I would say. I believe that those that aspire to be leaders, right? Whether it be at a young age, usually, probably, or maybe even a little on in their life, right? I believe they aspire and they're passionate about wanting to be a leader, and they absorb all the information they could possibly take on by investigating leadership, right? I think those people can teach themselves
without
to
a
be
doubt.
great leaders,
and you can
right?
and you have to become a better leader if you're put in a position of leadership. And so if there's a young person listening to this podcast, here's how you know if you're a leader or not. That if out of nowhere people are always just kind of coming up to you and just asking for advice or guidance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about,
yeah.
right? Or if just kind of you're just in kind of a group meeting and people just always seem to kind of look to you. They don't know why, but it's just they're just magnetized by it. And you're always wondering, why am I always being the one chose to, why do I also feel a sense of guilt when the kid's being bullied? Why do I just feel different about all these kids going out to drink? That's a leader. Yeah. Why am I just bored by everyone just having conversations about silly, superfluous things? Those are indicators that you're a leader.
Sure.
And by the way, so once you find those people, developing them into better leaders is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I got my youngest in the room today because he wanted to hang out with Charlie. He loves Charlie.
Oh, geez.
And Nick is
I
in
love
here.
Nick. He's so
Nikita
great.
Thomas Raybine's in the room today,
He's
listening in. But Nick won't go to a lot of parties because he just won't drink.
That's how I was, and am.
He won't smoke. He won't
He's a leader.
he won't do the vape thing, right?
By the way, we didn't have any of this stuff when I was in high school. This vape thing.
Not at all.
No, I mean I feel like it's 50 years ago.
But again, I know he's got a lot of friends that put pressure on him to go to these parties and hang out. And I said, Nick, get out there and go to these parties, hang out with these kids, right? And he's just he doesn't say no, I don't want to, or whatever. He just kind of doesn't do it. But want him to get out there and enjoy these friends of his, but he doesn't want to be put in a position where he looks like the naysayer or whatever. But what would you say to that? Those kids out there
look, find comfort and confidence in being different and like being not part of the conformity debauchery lifestyle. And that's how I was in high school. I never did any of those, sort of drinking or smoking or any of that sort of stuff. A lot of friends did, and I'm telling you, and I predicted it back then, they're not doing very well today, let me tell you. And I don't wish that upon them, but they're not doing very well at all. But if you know what you want to do with your life, this country allows you to do that. And it could be frustrating when you're in high school, when all those kids are doing that. But look, I don't think I went to any of those types of parties or anything. I just was always so bored by high schools. By high school students, just by their topics of conversation. There were 4 or 5 people that I would always have just certain philosophical conversations with, and I just kind of moved on from it. But that's a great indicator. Think nothing negatively about it.
So I had FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, right? And so I was a partier. I went to parties. I did all these things, right?
That's okay.
I kind of didn't get too crazy with it all, right? But enough to where I definitely was a partying kid and kind of went with the crowd in some ways. Eventually, I figured out that that's not who I wanted to be. And in my early 20s, didn't stop drinking, smoking pot, doing whatever, right? Having a good time. When I had a good time without those things, right? But bottom line is, I believe differentiation, as you just mentioned. Nick is so cool with his differentiation, right? And when I think about who he is as a young man, he's very different than the other kids. But he's different in a cool way, and that differentiation is a strong it's a strong character trait of his, right?
Totally.
I look at Quentin, I look at you. We're different than most. You guys are different than people in your age, coming from the communities you came from. I think differentiation is one of the coolest things that you can expose in anything you want to be good at.
In it. Yeah.
And when you become an entrepreneur, you lead. When you lead nonprofits like you guys are, you become an entrepreneur. You better differentiate. If you don't, you'll die, in my opinion. You'll die as a business if you don't differentiate. If a customer doesn't want to do business with you because of these differences that create more value to them, right? You know what? You're just another number.
Yep.
And so I think the differentiation that a kid could embrace early could be the future differentiators that create success in extreme levels, right? So,
I agree with that.
But differentiation, I believe, is a huge deal, and you've done a great job with it. Differentiating, because now in today's college campuses where it was cool, right, to kind of be a rebel a little bit, right, to
now being conservative is being a rebel.
Remember not being conservative was a big deal in the 60s, 70s, right?
That's right.
And all the cool kids, that's who they were. Today, you've got the cool. You've got the coolest movement because you're so different. Your young leaders in schools today are leading a revolution that's so different, and it's kind of the opposite of what it used to be, right?